assist you with anything?
No.
We are talking about the science fiction low-budget space opera Alien Expedition. This one is directed by the Wallace brothers. Now, the story of Alien Expedition, we have a far-flung future where humanity is searching for the next habitable planet. And it follows this sort of team of military personnel along with some scientists that are going down on a mission to try and find out if this planet could be habitable for human life. And when they're there, they discover this planet does have some real possibilities. It seems to be very similar to that of Earth. It looks especially like it. It has plants, it has water, etc. Could be a winner. However, as we find out there may be threats on this planet, both ecological and from kind of some type of alien menace as well. So we have meteor showers that seem to be quite regular. There is the water seems to be poisoned, and there seems to be a variety of different alien beings on this planet, all of whom have some type of malicious intent. So what happens in the movie, you'll have to watch it to find out, obviously, because that's as far as I'm going. So let's talk what works and what doesn't work with Alien Expedition. Now, a quick side note, if you look at IMDb of this one, it actually has quite a low score at the time of doing this review, a 2.8. But I've got to say, I think the movie's a little unfair, because I do feel this film does have a few things that it does very well. So let's talk about that. First for me was the world building. I actually thought this movie does quite a good job of setting up a kind of the rules of the world. Now, when I first watched this movie, I was reminded of the kind of the remake of Battlestar Galactica and the way that the humans are kind of operating with a kind of a military kind of style kind of leadership. With kind of different kind of, obviously, you know, commanders and various kind of hierarchy. But also kind of the Star Trek as well. And it does kind of almost feel like, in some aspects, this movie, it reminds you of the 60s especially, the kind of the 60s Star Trek. Almost like if that was made now, but it kind of stuck to the same scripts and the sort of same way of, of filming, but just in the modern era. You'd kind of be reminded of Star Trek as well. But then the world building was quite good. I mean, even we have, for example, this protagonist is this kind of like the scientist who has some type of beef with kind of androids and kind of robots and stuff. And of course, there is a female-looking android on this mission. And I thought it was a great scene, for example, where we actually see her in a state of undress, and she's got all the kind of like the rivets and the kind of the joints and stuff, and she's kind of like a Barbie doll with her anatomy. Things like that I thought were very good. The way her kind of eyes light up when she's kind of like doing stuff like that I thought was quite good. And just some neat little effects in regards to some of the kind of the planets in the sky, things like that. Some little kind of details of the ship and the kind of the way their hierarchy works. I thought the actual world building was fairly good. And the attention to detail here, I've got to say, is pretty good. The next thing I want to talk about is the cinematography. Cinematography here, I've got to say, was really stunning. There is some genuinely beautiful shots in this movie, and there's certainly a definite artistic flair from the Wallace brothers, because they set up some really kind of nice looking scenes, and there's definitely some directorial flair there. Now, maybe with a kind of a higher budget, we might have had a bit more kind of to go on with this movie. But there's certainly the makings there, I feel, for a strong directorial style with a kind of a definite kind of signature style. And I've got to say, I like the designs of some of these kind of creatures and stuff like that as well. That was all quite good. What doesn't work, and before we get on to the negatives, there's something I've got to address, which is maybe a positive or a negative, depending on how you look at it. That is the music. The music. Have you seen the movie Turbo Kid and heard the soundtrack by the Matos? If you have, this is a very similar soundtrack. So it's this 80s style synthy pop music that plays practically the whole way through this film. And I like it. I like the music. I thought the music is quite funky. I enjoy it. I enjoy that kind of like if you maybe Stranger Things, that kind of synthy kind of 80s feel. But I don't know if it fits this film. So as much as I like the movie, I don't know if it, and the soundtrack, I don't know if it is relevant to this movie and seems out of place. And even when there's meant to be dramatic scenes, that you have this kind of odd choice of this pop 80s style music. But I just don't know if it fits. So what legitimately didn't I like? Despite the fact I like the design of some of the kind of the aliens and stuff here, the CGI is very, very cheap looking. Now, that we do see quite a lot of these kind of creatures. I was actually surprised how much we did see. So it may have been less, it may have been better to pull back a little bit and have maybe less time on screen, but maybe sharpen up some of this CGI just a little bit, because it does look like sort of PlayStation 2 style kind of game graphics at times, which is a little shame. Now, it is a low budget film, so I can't hold it too much of a kind of a grudge on that one, to be honest. And like I said, science fiction on a low budget is hard to do, but nonetheless, I feel like I have to point it out. But other things here, the acting is a little ropey. A lot of the cast seem to be almost kind of overacting to a certain degree, and certainly doesn't seem like they're taking it particularly seriously. I mean, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe this is just a kind of, it's a kind of cheesy sci-fi B movie, but nonetheless, the cast feel like they're just kind of like, yeah, it's just a silly, low-budget direct-to-DVD film. I'm not going to take it too seriously, which is a shame, because I feel that there are some elements here that do work as strong science fiction. Not the whole cast, but there are certainly some members of it. The other thing I thought with this movie is the editing's a little bit on the poorer side. Now, what I mean by that, if I go back to what I mentioned in regards to, I like a lot of the cinematography here, and it's true, I do. But the problem is that a lot of these scenes go on for far too long, and ultimately, watching people put sensors in the ground and stuff like that, and then fight off the same kind of raptor-style aliens time after time, it gets a little boring. And there's things that just drag on too long. For an example of this, watch the very kind of last shot of the movie, and I'm thinking, okay, it's going to fade to black. No, it's carrying on. No, it's still going, and it's just one shot. And that's just an example of what I mean. It just goes on for too long. What I felt like it should have done was maybe have a little bit more kind of shorten the scenes a little bit and have maybe a little bit more variety in what's actually happening in regards to some of the story elements here. So I can understand this is obviously a movie that is not going to be for everyone, and it kind of on the surface of this, I can understand why people will see this as just a cheap throwaway kind of sci-fi movie. But I do feel there are some stylistic choices that are strong here, and I like the kind of the world that this movie has built. It just is the bones are there on this film. I think it's just kind of like it maybe needed a little bit more budget, a little bit more experience behind the camera and in front of it as well. And I felt maybe you may have had a kind of a minor cult hit on its hands with this one. As it stands, it's a watchable science fiction movie that is probably better than a lot of these kind of straight to DVD sci-fi movies to make. But it's not going to be one that I feel people will remember. But it's pretty, it's pretty average really for this kind of style of straight to DVD movie. Among the plethora of straight to DVD sci-fi movies. So better than some, not as good as others. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. If you've seen it, what did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.